everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I hope you find the presentation helpful and interesting. As Jeremy said, my name is Linda Hitchcock. I've been a college counselor for over 25 years. And before I was a college counselor, I read applications for Clemson. I love what I do. So I hope you find this information helpful. I'm not sure where your child is in the process. That's one thing that it's hard to tell by a Zoom presentation. However, we're going to start with doing college visits, and you can start doing them in the summer of your sophomore year. But definitely the junior year is definitely the time to start, like right now. We are in spring, and we are getting very close to the end of the school year. And as a junior, you're going to start, there's going to start filling out applications.
Sorry.
That's okay. Where they're going to start filling out applications in a very short time, like 29 days. So, okay, let's move on. And so we're in the spring, and you're going to focus on, so I will tell you that the juniors for that will be graduating and going to college in 2024, this spring semester is extremely important. The GPA at the end of their junior year is what colleges will use when a student applies early action. So the testing plan should be in place, if not already completed. And this is the time to start refining that college list. And we'll go through that. And definitely, I mean, spring break is here. I believe it starts next week. And school visits are very, very, very important. And that's what tonight we're going to focus on. Okay, so time to make that plan. Again, 125 days. By this time next year, you're gonna be you're gonna know where you're gonna attend, and so there's a lot of things to do before that. You need where you need to get to, what you need to do, and what application deadlines. So a 12-month plan is good for upcoming sophomores. That 12-month plan is good. Right now, we are kind of in jump mode for your juniors to start with these college visits. So let's go through what schools should be on the list, and how to start planning these visits. And if you've already planned them, this is great. We're still going to give you information about what to ask and questions and, locations. So the schools that belong on a list are list worthy. And what we mean by that is the student really wants to go there. It's a place that they've talked about or heard about, or a friend goes or whatever, but they really are enthusiastic about that. The second most important thing is affordability. So this is a conversation that you need to have with your child about the price tag. There are plenty of schools that give scholarships, and there are plenty that do not. So you kind of have to know what you can afford, set a budget now, and support that future. So taking a student to a school, for example, NYU, that's $90,000 a year, and you're not going to spend $90,000 a year on an education, and NYU gives very little support, then it might not be a school that you want to be number one first on your list. Okay, so based on affordability and where your child fits into the academic profile of the school, based on their GPA and their test scores, those are the schools that need to be on the list first. I tell families and students not to add a school if they have absolutely no desire to go there. I had a student a long time ago that applied to every school that GPA wise was kind of in a reach point, and she applied to every one of them and only one school for a safe school. And she had no interest in going there, none whatsoever. And unfortunately, that was the only school that she got accepted to. So, and she was devastated. So please keep that in mind when your child starts applying to school. Make sure if they tell you right off bat that they are not going to go there, then don't put it on. Expensive schools, again, we just talked about that. Unresearched schools, and solely based on reputation. For example, I just gave that example of NYU. We all know it has a great reputation, but if you haven't researched it, it may not be the school for your child. You know, grandparents and friends and everybody are quick to say, oh, you need to go here and apply here. And then come to find out that that school may not even be a place that they want to go. So research is very important. Okay, so what will affect the list? We just talked about that. GPA, all right. Interest, dreams, drive, focus, evolving priorities. Money is an evolving priority. Location is an evolving priority. And when you sit down and think about this list and what you're going to put on this list, you need to use good information sources. So there's plenty of information sources out there, plenty of websites to look. Every school has a virtual tour. Do the virtual tour first, just to see if it's a school that you might be interested in. However, I will tell you, if the virtual tour looks exciting and great, it's important to go there, because sometimes the virtual visit might be wonderful and you get there and the school is definitely not a place that the child wants to go. So that's so important. You cannot tell by sorry, I lost my train of thought there. You cannot tell by a web presentation and a Zoom presentation what the area looks like, what the town looks like, where, you know, what the buildings look like. Are there restaurants there? Things that might be very important to your child. Is it in the middle of nowhere? Is it cold? Is it hot? All of those things you can't tell by a virtual visit. So visiting is very important. The geographical locations, family commitment, maybe the child doesn't want to drive that far. Maybe sending your child on an airplane to California might not be something that you want to do. So again, all of those things are going to play big factors when you start making that list. I will also tell you that when you're building that list and when you go to a college visit, your child's going to immediately tell you, oh no, this is not what I like, or yes, this is, oh, let me, you will know when your child walks on that campus and is interested, or is like, okay, we can go home now. So listen to their intuition, because remember, they're the ones that are going to live there for 4 years. So their intuition and feeling is important. Okay, and again, we talked about debt. We talked about some degree, like, are they going to pursue a master's, or are they going to pursue a doctorate degree or a law degree? All of these things will play an important role in finances and your child. And do they want to go to a school that might have a 5-year program and they stay at one school and get their master's done in 5 years? So these are all things that, can build your list and that are important to think about. Okay, so we talked about where do you begin? Major or career interest is most of the time where I begin. However, I will tell you, not unless your child is very focused on a certain career, like in, digital arts or a criminal justice or that type of thing, and they know exactly what they want to major in or their career interest in, sometimes that factor may not be the most important. Sometimes kids will change their minds once they get there. So sometimes looking at a big picture, especially if they're really not sure of what they want, is to sit down and look at, okay, where is it? Where is it? Is it, like I said, is it in the middle of nowhere? Is it a big school? Is it far away? Some students only like to be a couple hours away from home. Some don't care. That's pretty important. Weather, location, geography, all of that makes a huge difference. Do they have family somewhere that they would be comfortable being out of state because they have family? So that plays a very big part of this process. Are they big into sports? Do they like watching sports? What are the extracurriculars there? Maybe sports is not something they want to do. Maybe it's, swimming, or maybe it's ping pong. I mean, I'm just brainstorming here, but there are many things that schools offer that your child may not even think about. So there's some great clubs and great volunteer opportunities, internships. Those are all things that could very be important to put on that list. Again, GPA and test scores, definitely a big driver and a big factor, because we have to be honest, that's what the schools are looking for. They're looking for a student that's going to come and be successful, and they know that by looking at their GPA, their classes they're in, how well they do in those classes. Okay, and we talked about money. I will, just know that that's a major piece of this whole process. Okay, what do you do when your child doesn't know? All right, and sometimes they don't know. They don't know their career and major. And again, I've learned over the years that sometimes that is not the major thing. However, some kids really get caught up with, well, I don't know what I want to do. Okay, so there are plenty of free personality tests that really are very good about when a child answers the questions correctly, it will come back with many different options of things that they can look at. If they're really not sure, they should also go and volunteer. Possibly work with the community, see if this is something they like to do. Internships, get a job. Sometimes people think that they might want to have a marketing degree, but then they actually go and look at what marketing really is, and they realize a lot of it is making phone calls, and they're like, no, I don't want to do that. So these are the types of things that they need to know, and it's a good time to start now, especially if your child's a freshman or sophomore. For a junior, hopefully they've done some of this. If they haven't, this summer is a good time to do it. So it, again, a lot of these things they can do, but the personality tests are free and very good. I mean, they're much better than they used to be. All right, let's talk about some schools. A liberal arts school is very different than large universities. At large universities, the students are mandated to do some type of research. So if your child is not really loving research, then maybe a big, large university might not be something that they're interested in. Liberal arts colleges are a well-rounded school, a well-rounded education. They take, math every year. However, they don't just take, math 101 or algebra or finite algebra. They can take a variety of classes. So they've got like 10 classes that offer for English in all different types of subjects. So the subject matter is wide, and the amount of education is also wide. Large universities, you tend to do your first 2 years in the prerequisites for whatever major you choose. By your sophomore year, you have to pick a major, and then the last 2 years are focused on that major. So in large universities are large, big classes, might not have as many opportunities for working with a professor, or small class sizes. So if small class sizes are important, then you want to look at a smaller school, or you may want to look at a liberal arts colleges. In addition, some of the large universities are also having a liberal arts college within their campus. So something, again, if your child says, I really want a big university, however, they may not want to know exactly what they want to do, or they want that relationship with a professor, then look for schools that have a liberal arts college within them. There are other schools. We're going to show you some, but if your son or daughter is focused on a career. Maybe they want to be a chef. Maybe they want to do, you know, electrical engineering, and they know that they only want engineering. Then they might want to go just to a strict engineering school or aeronautical school, or again, a chef school. So those are options as well. If you feel that maybe they need a gap year or they want to do a service program, we can talk about that. You can ask me any questions. I've helped many students with gap years and service programs as well. Okay, so we talked about the primary factors to consider. And again, type, size, location, distance, affordability. The secondary, so that's primary. When you're making that list, those should be at the very top of that list. The secondary is majors, special criteria for specific majors. For example, engineering, they're going to want students that have had high level math classes and probably pre-engineering and just different things of what they want. Sports offerings, again, secondary. Career services, I believe that's an important factor to look at when you start to visit these schools. I would definitely ask if, as a parent, that was one of the first things I asked, because, you know, if they don't help them build a resume or find internships or help them find jobs, then, you know, they're going to end up doing this all by themselves. And it's great when you have a strong career services offered. So parents, ask that question when you go on campus. The kids don't care, but you as parents, you should probably care. Extracurricular, what can they do? Study abroad, which is a phenomenal opportunity for kids. And I'm finding that almost every school is offering study abroad. High school courses required for admission. For example, South Carolina, you must take 4 years of science, and 3 of them must be lab science. So many schools have different criteria. Some engineering schools, Georgia Tech, for example, if your child's going into engineering, they are looking for the highest level math that the school offers. Maybe it's important to have a Catholic school or a religious affiliation school. If that's important to your family, then that's where you start that list. Both of my children had learning disabilities. In fact, that's how I started working with college admissions. And that was extremely important. We didn't build the list without having that service on the list, because both of my children really needed it. So if that's a factor, then again, that should be up there with that primary. Okay, you got to sit down and really have the great discussion with your child about all of these things, and go down the list and really have a discussion. And parents, I know your children are saying, but I don't know. Well, start with geography and then make that decision, price and geography, and then go forward. Okay, we talked about liberal arts college. We talked about specialized, vocational, big universities, and community colleges. So we can't forget about community colleges, because sometimes they are great options. Montgomery College is, I think, number 3 in the country. Okay, so let's, I would say for all of my career, and your children are going to hear this from their high schools, they're going to hear safety, reach, safety, target, and reach. Those are the 3 terms that have been passed down for generation, meaning a safety school is they're probably going to get in based on their GPA, their test scores, and what the school's looking for. There are other factors that go into this probable list, and we'll go through them, but based on academic probables, that's what we consider now a safe school. However, I will tell you that over the last 4 years, I am seeing some students that I actually would have thought they would have gotten into the University of Maryland, and they didn't. And same with other schools. You know, I was positive some students were going to get into that, and I had to bite my tongue because I was wrong. So it's, there's no science to know exactly if a school is safe. So you have to call it probable. All right. Then the target schools are possible. Again, the student's GPA falls within the average range. However, if this school gets 90,000 application, then they're going to look at many different factors and not just test scores and not just class lists. They're going to look at interest. They're going to look at, did you visit? They're going to look at, how much demonstrated interest did you have in the school? So all of those things make it possible. However, it's possible based on the student's actions. Okay. Unlikely, flat out reach schools. Unlikely are schools that pretty much are out of range based on GPA, test scores. Also, schools that are, Harvard is what, a 4% acceptance rate. So they only need 1,200 students to fill their class, their freshman class, and they're receiving over 100,000 applications. So you really have to look at the numbers and really look and say, it's pretty unlikely. About, is it a guarantee? There is no guarantee. And when I've sat down with all students and all parents and everybody, I tell them when they have a Ivy League school on their list, you can't call it a safe, you can't call it possible, and you can't call it probable because you just don't know. You don't know what they're looking for. That's the black box, is that unlikely. All right. So how many schools? Okay, right now, you're in the spring, okay? So you want to make that list wide, all right? And then start narrowing it down. But make it wide so your child has enough schools to apply to and not just, okay, we're only going to apply to 5 or 4. So make it wide and then start doing that list based on all of the criteria that we just gave you: money, location, size, major, sports, all of those other things that are going to be important. That's how you're going to narrow this list. But right now, start big, okay? By the summer, after you've visited these schools, because visiting is, again, really important. I just can't stress it enough how important it is and what a difference it will make. Some of these schools that are on this big list from the spring, you will get there and they are absolutely, without a doubt, don't like it. I've seen it over and over and over again. In fact, the Derryberry family is going through it right now with their daughter, and they are noticing the same thing, that they love a school based on all the criteria they were looking for. They get to the school and it's absolutely not what they anticipated. So that's why the spring list is large. Narrow it down for the summer. Again, do more research. And then the fall, by the time they start applications, the list should be anywhere between 6 to 15. I used to say 10 was the max amount. However, based on the COVID and the situation that we're in, and the more kids going to school, anywhere between 12 to 15 is a nice number. But again, as a family, you need to sit down and think about this, because every application is anywhere between, I think the lowest that I've seen is maybe 40, and they go all the way up to $100. And then, so 15 schools at $100 each is quite a bit of money. And then you have to send your test scores. So keep that in mind when they start applying to schools. In addition, when you go to visit these schools in person, many of them will give a fee waiver for their application. So if they don't mention it, ask. Okay. All right. All right. I tell families and students this all the time. Organization, track of things is absolutely imperative. You have to do it. When I teach the summer class, the kids get a binder. They organize it. They know what's there. They know what needs to be done. It's all in front of them. I have the kids do a spreadsheet. We put things in spreadsheets. I ask the kids to share that spreadsheet with their parents. So the parents are on the same page as the student. And that way there's no, well, you didn't tell me and I don't know. And the arguments that possibly might happen. So have everything documented and keep track of it. So that's one thing that I will tell you. I made a mistake 15 years ago when my daughter went to school, and I regret every minute of it. So when I work with a student, that's a very first thing we do is to get organized. All right. So when your child goes to a college visit, I also tell them, take pictures. Okay. Remember these schools, like, visiting 15 schools, they're all going to start running together. So take pictures, not only take pictures of the campus, but take pictures of the area just to remember, or take a note, keep it on your note. Or the other thing the kids can do is record it. When they get to there, keep notes and record it. Don't like the town, but I like the school, or don't like the vibe from the kids, or whatever it is, write it down. So that's probably keeping track of it. When you go to a college visit, pick up the business card of the representative that's from Maryland. If you don't live in Maryland, Virginia, or wherever you live, pick up that business card. Pick up who was giving the presentation, who was the tour guide. Get their email, get their information, especially if it's a school that your child loves, because the more you keep in track with them, again, demonstrated interest can come into an important role of a being probable. So demonstrated interest and why you want to go to that campus is also very important, especially now. So school specific data, again, how many kids are they admitting? How many does it take for them to have their classes full? So again, keeping track. There's lots of resources out here. Your child, all schools in Montgomery County have Naviance. If your child hasn't talked about it, please make sure you contact your child's counselor to get on Naviance, because it is incredibly helpful. It is based on the school where your child goes, which is what's most important, because that's where they go and that's what the colleges are going to look at, is based on the high school they attend. I love the U.S. Department of Education website. Probably one of my favorite websites is to go online and you can just type in University of Maryland Common Data Set. And when you go to the Common Data Set, it's many, many, many pages. However, there are pages that say freshman applications, and it will tell you how many applications they received, what the average GPA was, what the average test score was. Plenty of search engines out there, plenty. I like Niche. There's plenty. College Board has them, ACT has them, they all have them. You can go to a lot of the ranking books. I tend to use one, it's called Rugs. And again, lots of websites out there. Social media, tell the kids they really like the school, then go on Facebook, go into Instagram, go to their newspapers. It's another thing. When you go to visit a school, pick up the newspaper. Parents, you are going to be very surprised what you might read. Okay. How do you get this help? Okay. Your teachers, your counselors, they can help. School specific contacts, again, area reps, admissions offices, department heads, professors. If your child's interested in a specific major, go talk to the academic dean for that department, for that school. They love talking to kids, love it, because nobody really wants to talk to them. If your child's interested in playing a sport, you want to know who that coach is, and that's a whole different process. Financial aid officers are probably a little bit more important for the parents to know who they are right now, but you want to get their information. And again, who gave you that tour? Your child, after they go to the visit, they should send the tour guide a thank you note. They should definitely be sending the admissions office great tour, really learned a lot. Thank you so much. There's that it goes a long way, and they document it and they put it in your child's file. So again, there are plenty of questions which we can send you as a resource of things to ask when your child goes on a college visit. You don't want to ask questions like, oh, how many students go here? Well, you can find that on their website. Like, oh, what majors do you offer? Again, information on their website. So things to ask them are unique things like, how do you like it here? What made you apply here? What's your favorite class here? Those are questions that are not on their website, and a good thing for your child to start asking those questions. Again, as a parent, I've been on plenty of college visits with my own children and with other children, and I will tell you that they go on the tour and never ask a question. But if you give them some questions to ask, then they have them. The problem is they don't think about these questions, and all they're thinking about is, wow, how beautiful it is, or, oh, this is a great place, or they hate it. So they're never going to ask a question if they hate it. But those are important things. And if you give them the tool of what questions to ask, then I assure you they will. All right. So making the most of the visits. We've talked about this. We've talked about virtual. Do a virtual first. But I will tell you, out of that virtual list and the ones that really, really love in-person self-guided or in-person general guided, sometimes we got to the school and they didn't have any openings for their tour. So we went on a self-guided tour. So that was very helpful as well. I had my son and my daughter both follow up with the admissions rep to let them know that they were there and to ask any other questions. But at least you're there. Make sure you sign in when you go to the admissions office, sign the name, make sure they know who you are. And again, sometimes if you can't sign up online, but you know what time the visit is. So let's say you want to go visit Pittsburgh, and online they tell you all of the tours are booked. Well, I'll give you a little bit of information. Not all of them are booked. So they keep some open for kids that show up at the last minute. So if there's a tour for 1 o'clock and you arrive at 10 minutes to 1 or 12:45, the chances are you're probably going to be able to get on that tour. So don't eliminate going to a school based on how full they are based on their website. Okay, again, visit the campus before you start spending $120 on an application and find out that it's a school that you can't afford and the student hates it and won't attend there for 4 years. As I said before, take pictures, take notes, videos, whatever you want to do. And I said, the tours all run together. I think my daughter and I went to 10 different schools and, in a week, and, we had to write it all down. And that was one area that we did not do. And again, I tell you that I regret every minute of it. So, all right. Again, open house days, they do have overnight perspective stays. You can ask about those. And again, major specific, that's in here. I'm glad we have this on the slide, because sometimes if your child is interested in a specific thing, like pre-law, they have a specific program, engineering, computer science. There are many additional visits that are specifically for a major. And if they have that and your child knows exactly what they want to do, I would do that. Arts One, music, there's plenty of them out there, and they definitely do major specific. So, if you have to do the self-guided tour, but then you do the major specific tour, that you're seeing everything you need. Okay, scheduling and timing. Now, once you add schools to the list, start making the visit. Plan ahead. Again, I talk about my daughter and our visits, but it was very helpful. She knew where she wanted to go, and we plotted out a map based on where we could get to and the amount of time that we could get to. And we went for an entire week. And then we saw the local schools over a weekend or a day off. But we tried to do some of the schools that were not close by grouping them together by location. And maybe you have family somewhere where you can go and stay with family and, in the summer and take a vacation. We did that as well when we went to the Finger Lakes and took a couple days just to relax, and then off we went to all the schools. So spring break's coming, and even if the school in the summer doesn't have students on campus, don't be intimidated to say it's not a good time to go, because it is. You still see a lot when you visit a school, even if students aren't there. So you get to see the area, you get to see the layout of the school, you get to see the dorms. There's so many things that you will be able to see. And then if they really love the school, then possibly take a second trip back there, if possible, see the actual students that go to the school. But I find that even during the summer, it's still important to get a feel for what that school is like. So don't let that stop you. A lot of people think you should only go when students are in session. And I find that that's sometimes not possible. And sometimes it doesn't matter, because you still get a really good feel for what the school is. Very good point. This is make sure that the email address that your child is using is their email address. Everything should go through the student, not the parent. And I try to tell students they might just want a email account that is strictly for college stuff, because I know that emails tend to get, their inboxes tend to get full and the kids don't read their emails. However, if they give a specific email to college visits, then the only person that has that email is going to be those specific schools. So sometimes it's a real good idea to have an email strictly for college. Some kids don't like to do it, but it's always something that I present to my families as a good idea. So, and then again, pay attention to how hard it is, how many flights you had to take, how many transfers you had to take, or once you get to the location to Atlanta and then you have to take 2 buses to get to somewhere, then that might not be as easy, especially visiting. But think about it when your child's coming home on a holiday and there's thousands of other people coming out of that same airport at the same time. So again, all these little things put in the back of your mind, mom and dad, because this is what your child is going to do. And again, on the slide, it says, what happens if there is an emergency? How quickly can you get there? Sometimes you can get there quicker on an airplane than driving. But again, all the little things that parents need to think about with, when they're doing this trip, put it in the back of your mind. Because if you tell your child that this is that way, then I can assure you, you're going to get kickback. But I would tell mom and dad to put that on their checklist. All right. Again, questions. Okay. All the things with, again, asking these representatives, asking the tour guide. If you meet with the admissions dean, again, more questions. If they meet with an academic dean, be sure to ask them, do you, for the first 2 years, are you only taking prerequisites? When do you get to start taking classes that are specific for your major? What type of options do I have for classes? Can I only study abroad in my junior year? These are all things to ask an academic dean or the admissions rep. But most of the time it's the academic dean or a professor that's going to know that. As I said, What do they live there? How many kids live on campus? If you get the answer of 50%, well, that might not be a great place if your child is there on the weekend and everybody else is going home. So again, these are things that kids don't think about, but once they ask that question, then it kind of, says, oh, well, that makes a difference, right? So the questions are important. Follow up. And when I do my summer class with the students, that's one of the very first things we do. I have them make a list of who they spoke to, and I kind of give them, a prompt of what to say in this email, but I make sure that they know how important it is. Okay. Oh, said, get lunch, get dinner, ask them for that. Well, it's a really good place to eat here for lunch. When I went to Syracuse with my daughter, believe me, we got plenty of recommendations, and it was great because everybody had a different place, and we went and checked them out, and it just made the visit fun. And that's what you want, mom and dad. This is a fun thing to do. I loved college visits. It was, yes, sometimes when we got there, and yes, it might've been a little stressful, but the places you see and the things and the little cities and the towns, and it make it enjoyable. This is probably the best time to visit schools, is the closest you're going to come with your son or your daughter with this college process, I promise. Because once the applications start, they're going to be, I can do this on my own. So the college visits are fun to have with your son or your daughter. So enjoy it. Again, don't ask the same thing that's on the website. Build a network. Again, a lot of these schools, once you go to the school and you visit it, one of the questions you might say is, are you going to visit my high school? Okay, well, yes, they are going to visit your high school. Oh, great, I'll see you then. Because again, maybe they visited, but showing that demonstrated interest, the first level is visiting. If you love the school, the second visiting is make sure you go to that college visit at the school, or if it's a local college fair. And some representatives do big group events at hotels. So once they're on the mailing list, they will get the emails about those. All right. Again, know who's talking. We talked about that. Follow up, and ask her. It's interesting, when my child hated doing this, but I kind of forced her into it, and she found out it was beneficial. When we went on campus, and if we weren't on a guided tour, I kind of would stop a student and say, hey, can you tell us a little bit about the campus, or what's your major? I assure you, these kids will stop and they will talk to you. So sometimes you get, I've been on college visits as a college counselor, and sometimes the kids that aren't tour guides give me a better tour than the kids that are tour guides. So, ask those questions. Go in their cafeteria. Like I said, there's so many things to do. Take advantage of all the things on campus when you go. Go to the bookstore. All right. Final tips. All right. So I don't want to rush here, but there's a lot of things that I want to cover. Once you get finished with the visit, sit down. Does that school come off the list, or does it stay on the list? Really sit down and evaluate it. Because again, in the beginning, we talked about it. Don't just put a school on a list just because it's a school. Will you go there? Will you actually go there if you apply and get admitted? If they won't, then this should not be on that list. All right. Did it match what you wanted? Really sit down. And if they're not sure, then ask them, why are you not sure? Like, what makes it not sure, right? And if they just don't know, because sometimes after going to just one visit, they don't know. So it's going to take 2 or 3 different schools for your child to figure out, oh, this is different than that school. Like, this is in a city, lots of taxis and fire trucks and, the city vibe that I didn't expect, or it's in the middle of nowhere and I would never be able to go to Target or where to Starbucks. Like I have to drive everywhere. Those are the things that make a difference when you visit a school, because they don't think about those things when you're looking at everything on paper. So they're going to get to know what matters after the second or the third college visit. Sometimes, and I will tell students and parents, if you don't want to invest the money in going into college visits, go local. Okay, go visit some great schools around the area, not necessarily because they want to go there, but go to a small school, go to a small liberal arts school. We have plenty of them in the area. Go to a mid-sized school, right? There's, again, within an hour's drive, you're going to find many. Go to big, large university. If we live in Maryland, there's one right, very close in College Park. Big university. It will take you an hour to walk that full campus. So those are the things that if your child just really doesn't know, especially if you're listening to this and your child is a freshman or a sophomore, go locally. And not necessarily that that's going to be their final school that they're going to fall in love with. However, they're going to get a real good idea of what schools are like. All right. And I promise you, and I tell this story to the kids a lot and to families a lot, but I will never, ever forget driving all the way to North Carolina to a school that my daughter was absolutely convinced that she would attend and wanted to attend. We got to the school. She looked around and said, I'm done, let's go home. And we drove 7 hours there for this school. She absolutely knew, without a doubt, without even taking the tour, that this was not the school for her. However, I did make her take the tour because we drove so far, but she got out, she got done with the tour. I was like, do you want to go to the bookstore? Do you want to get a t-shirt or whatever? And she's like, nope, I'm not going here. Why do I need one? And it eventually I found out the reason why, and definitely was not her style of school. However, she didn't know that by just looking at the fancy brochures and all the emails they sent, and because they will bombard your child with emails. And I'm sure all of you are already receiving tons of mail. Like, we want them here. It's flattering to get all of this mail. But go through it, because some of the schools you're like going to look at and go, well, they're not even going to go there. So, or it's, again, the tuition is $1,000 a year, less. So there are ways to, channel down that list and make it smaller. But trust your child's gut feeling. I'm telling you, it is so important. All right. And then mom and dads, again, have a fun time. Yes, it is frustrating. It's tiring. It's important. It's just important. And, again, the Daraberries can attest to this, and I can as well, that, and if you ask that's been through this process previous, I know the very first thing they're going to tell you is to make sure you visit and ask questions. So enjoy it, okay? And if you have questions, my email is at the end of this presentation. And again, I'm available to, if you want to email with a real quick question, feel free, please do. I could talk about colleges all day long. And Ann and Jeremy Daraberry know this. I love talking about colleges and helping students. It's my passion. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. All right, I think we've gone through all the slides. So let's go to the question and answer period. If I missed everything, please put your question in the chat room and we will answer them.
I don't think we have any questions.
No?
Does anybody have any?
Anybody? No? Okay.
Got one person asking, is a college counselor required?
I think it depends upon the student and the parents. Some parents really, some students just don't want, and how can I say that this nicely without offending anybody, but sometimes it's difficult for a child to work with their parent. Just sometimes, not always. I do find, and again, I am a private college counselor, so yes, I can tell you that some of my information is going to be more helpful than the high school counselor. I was a high school counselor for 20 years. I just 560 some children. There was no way I could help them all. I did have my class at that school. That's why I love teaching the class. But again, when you have so many students, and again, same thing with the counselor, because counselor probably has, if it's a school of 2,500 students, the counselor probably has a caseload of 350 students. If your student hasn't even talked with your high school counselor, then it's kind of hard for the high school counselor to give them advice. They're going to give generic advice. They're going to hand you out a lot of pamphlets and a lot of things to read. But if you want that one-on-one conversation and resource, then yes, hire a college counselor. Interview them, look at the cost, is it well worth your cost? Is it not? But I say to interview them because we are all different. So there's not one type, to make sure you ask, because we're all different. All right, anything else? Was there any other?
Yep, asking when will you find out about financial aid offered by schools? Time frame.
Not until after the child applies and gets in. So, however, there are plenty of resources to find out about how much aid you will get. So is strictly aid, and those are income. Scholarships aid, however, based on merit or based on different things. With the school, ask them, do you have merit scholarships? Are they private scholarships? Like UVA has the Jefferson Scholarship. You have to be nominated for it. These are all things to ask questions of to determine the fact cost and send those to you. It's kind of a long drawn out thing, but as far as aid, just for aid is government loans. Scholarships are based on merit, talent, sport, writing an essay, nations, those types of things. And again, not an Ivy League school or a selective school out there that will give a merit aid. So they just don't. It's all based on financial need. I hope that helps.
I'd also mention that we did a presentation last June on how to figure out the cost that your family will pay for a specific college. And we'll probably be doing that again in a few months. And we'll go through that sort of detail in general so that you can get an idea about what a college would cost for you, your specific family, ahead of getting the financial aid letters, just so you have a good general ballpark to work with.
Okay. Anything else? And again, my email is at the end. The presentation will be played again. Feel free to reach out. To help you as you joined us. I found this helpful. Again, everybody's in a different stage of the college planning. So I hope some of this information is helpful for you, whether you have a freshman, a sophomore, or a junior. So, thank you for joining us. And again, appreciate your time.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Good night.